of a faithful restoration. In terms of what you look at the impact that it has on the course, in terms of interest by prospective players or members, it's really been amazing. And I've got a couple of examples, both public and private, I'd like to share with you. I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. There is a Ross course in western North Carolina called Highlands. It's in very far western part of the state in the mountains. It's almost due north of Atlanta. And Highlands was built in the 20s by a group of Atlanta businessmen who wanted Bobby Jones to have a place to play or practice in the summer because it's so hot in Atlanta. Well, by the 1990s, this club was circling the drain. It was a private club. They had a waiting list of people trying to get out. It was an equity club. They couldn't sell their memberships. The houses that happened to be sort of around the course, they were deteriorating in value, and what the club decided to do is, a full-on restoration. And as a consequence of doing that, the club now has a waiting list to get in. The initiation fee is over $100,000. The money they've received from initiation fees from new members has paid for an entirely new clubhouse, and it is a spectacular clubhouse. Just to give you, that's just sort of one example. I'll give you an example of one other private club, and then I'll talk about a public one that I think should be close to home, and that is in Brunswick, Georgia. There's a club called Brunswick Country Club. And here again, this is a course that was really experiencing hard times. Their membership was down to about 80. It looked like they were not going to survive. What did they do? A full-on restoration of the course. Now they have a robust membership, a new clubhouse, and so forth. A public example that I think is worth looking at, particularly as it relates to Dunedin, involves a course in Boardman, Ohio called Mill Creek. I don't know if any of you are from the eastern Ohio area. Boardman happens to be near Youngstown, Ohio. This was an area that was very, very successful economically, but heavily dependent upon the steel industry, and as that all left, the economic vibrancy of the area really deteriorated quite a bit. So what the city of Boardman ended up doing was they formed a public-private partnership to upgrade. They have 2 Ross courses in this particular location. They started in 2015. At the time, the 2 courses were doing about 55,000 rounds a year. That may not sound a lot compared to you all, but their playing season is quite a bit shorter than yours. And they've been putting money in every year since then. The Donald Ross Society has been giving them money, but they've also raised a lot in other ways. And it's getting better every year. So they're in the 7th year of it. Within 2 years, the amount of play went from something like 55,000 to 75,000. It's now up to almost $90,000. And one of the things they had found and led them to do it is they started tracking the zip codes of people who were coming to play the course. And they realized after a while that a lot of play they were getting were for people well out of the area, so they started questioning them and said, well, we're here, we want to play a Donald Ross course. And so, which again was prompting their efforts to restore it. I'm also happy to say that today the restoration effort is as vibrant as ever. There's some very prominent courses in the United States that have recently undertaken this, including Oak Hill in Rochester, the Inverness Club in Toledo, Ohio. East Lake just announced they're going to be in Atlanta, Georgia. That's a Ross course. They're going to restore that. And Oakland Hills in Ohio, in Michigan, north of Detroit, Michigan. And you ask yourself, so why are they doing this? And I think one of the things we keep coming back to is if you look at his designs, there's so much variety to what he puts into his holes. And there's a very heavy reliance on strategic play, where for the player of all skill levels to be presented with challenges and rewards and keeping the experience very interesting and really contributes to the sort of the timeless appeal of Ross's designs. I want to finish my comments with a few sentences I've taken out of a book at Oakland Hills. They just finished the restoration of their South course, which is a very famous course. It's hosted more U.S. Open, PGA championships, major championships than any other course in the United States. And by way of background, the course was built originally, the South Course, in 1916. And by 1950, the USGA was concerned that the scores in the U.S. Open were coming down too fast. That, they wanted people to struggle playing the U.S. Open. So what they did is they engaged Robert Trent Jones. Many of you probably heard his name. He completely redesigned Ross's course, and Ben Hogan, who won there that year, dubbed the course the Monster because he had made it so difficult. And the club was very proud of that. They were very proud of having the Monster. And 50 years later, they hired Trent Jones' son, Reese Jones, to come in and tiger-proof the course in the early 2000s. Oakland Hills has two courses. I have friends there, and they all said the same thing. They never wanted to play the South Course. It was miserable, unless you were a really, really good golfer. And they all played the other one. So they decided, this is just kind of nuts, that they were going to restore the course. And they've put out a book called Bringing Back Ross. They've taken out all of the stuff that Robert Trent Jones did, all of the stuff that Reese Jones did to the course. And it's now 97% Donald Ross course. But anyway, this is taken from that book. Why did Oakland Hills, after 70 years, decide to return to its roots? Because the infatuation with difficulty gave way to a desire for something more. Just settling for Ross's greens and routings was not enough. Donald Ross is more than greens and routings. Those may be his greatest and most obvious strengths, but he is more than that. He is also a unique way to get from tee to green, a way that offers choices that enhance the landscape, takes advantage of landforms, and enlivens the field of vision that lies between your ears. Ross offers a multifaceted vision of golf. His courses are designed to maximize the golfer's options and give him the opportunity to play a different game, even when he returns to the same course time and again. That's what makes golf fun, and that's why Oakland Hills brought Ross back. Thank you very much.
One thing I forgot to mention, we received a grant from the Donald Ross Society that made all of these restoration plans possible, and I want to formally thank Mr. Brad Becken. I think we need to give him a round of applause for him and the Donald Ross Society. Brad, I would like to present you with a little token of our appreciation for coming tonight, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
So our next speaker, I met a little over a year ago, and as we were starting to talk in the grounds committee, and we had such a multitude of issues with the golf course that we wanted to address, some of the conversations started to turn to, what would happen if we could do a full restoration? We knew it was going to be a daunting task to raise the money and so forth, but we said, well, maybe we can at least get a restoration plan done. And so we started thinking, well, who can we talk to that might be able to help us? Well, about that same time, there was an article that came out in one of the local newspapers about the restoration of Sarah Bay Golf Course down in Sarasota, Florida. And there was just glowing reviews about the restoration of that great Donald Ross course. An architect that, quite frankly, I had never heard of up to that point was Kris Spence, who did the design. So I called down to Sarah Bay, doing my little investigative reporting, and talked to a gentleman, I think it's Paul Barone, and I asked him, I said, well, tell me a little bit about the restoration, how did it go? He says, unbelievable. He says, we're adding members. The members love the golf course. He said, Kris did a great job. He came in at or slightly below budget. He was on his timeline. I said, would you recommend him? He said, definitely. So we reached out to Kris, and the next thing you know, we were working with him on a restoration plan. But to give you a little background on Kris, he grew up in the Boot Heel of Missouri, played golf at Arkansas State. He was actually a golf course superintendent before he was an architect, so he really understands turf and what needs to happen, much like Donald Ross. Donald Ross was a golf course superintendent before he became a designer. In 2000, Kris went out on his own after working with Nicholas Design and some other firms, and started his own design firm. And since then, he's restored over 60 classic golf courses, most of them being Donald Ross courses. Some of his most famous ones are Roaring Gap, which is now in the top 100 in the country, post-restoration. Of course, he did Sarah Bay, Memphis Country Club, Mimosa Hills in North Carolina, the Grove Park Inn. I don't know if any of you have been to Asheville, beautiful hotel there, did that golf course. And then probably his most prominent one is Sedgefield, where they hold the Wyndham tournament every year in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's been recognized by the Donald Ross Society as a authentic Donald Ross restoration architect. And we're really, really pleased to have Kris come down and present to us tonight. So with no further ado, Kris, come up here and talk a little bit about this plan.
Thank you, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be here, and I live in North Carolina, so pardon my northern accent. But anyway, I'm gonna try to keep this within about an hour. We'll go through the master plan a little bit and talk about really what it's hard to see out there today, but there's not a stronger pedigree than Donald Ross to have as the designer of your golf course. So what we do to prepare a master plan is we go through a sort of a research process of looking for old drawings, looking at aerials, things like that, to try to find out what was out there, originally. What did Ross, he may have drawn. What kind of golf course was he asked or tasked to build? This golf course had 114 bunkers. That's a lot of bunkers on a golf course. Even for a Donald Ross golf course. He's higher than that, he's much lower than that. Generally, when you see that type of bunkering on a golf course, he set out to build a championship quality golf course, one that's very thought-provoking, ask the player to strategically work their way around the golf course. But you have to envision this golf course didn't have any trees on it originally, so he's using a lot of the bunkers to guide you over nondescript golf holes that may have lacked irrigation. There's a lot that goes into why he designed the golf course the way he did, but he was also designing in an era that there were hickory shafted clubs, the balls flying very low to the ground, not a lot of spin. Now, I may have just described a lot of your golf games. we're all headed back to a lower ball flight with a little less spin. So that's one of the beauties of restoring a Donald Ross golf course. So one of the things you're going to see is when people modernize these courses, they kind of squeeze the bunkers in, they narrow their approaches, and they restrict the strategy. So we're going to open those approaches back up and do some of those kind of things. But looking at this slide, this is just a quick overview of, you've got 48 bunkers on the golf course. We're going to end up with 87. So the master plan is calling for 87 bunkers, much less than the 114, but much, many more than what you have today. You got 44 greenside. We're bumping that up to 52. Most of the new bunkering is going to come in the fairway areas. So we got 35 fairway bunkers. But if you look at the top slide there, so you currently have 73,000 square feet of bunkers. And we're adding all those bunkers, but we're only increasing the square footage by 7,000 square feet. So the bunkers have grown, they've spread out, the sand is sort of blown out, been drug out of the bunkers. They've misformed. So the bunkers will be smaller, be more of them, smaller, but not that much more sand for you to avoid. Just a quick look at the scorecard. It's going to be about a little over 7,000 yard par 72 golf course. From the backs, going down to 4,700. So we're adding some back tees. We're also adding some forward tees in areas, and you'll see that when we get into the master plans. Just a quick slide of a authentically restored Donald Ross green at Sedgefield. That's the ninth green. All of those mounds and things were well off the green when we started, so we bring the green back out. That's an old punch bowl green, kind of unique in his portfolio. So drilling into the green complex, the greens are obviously the highest priority that we have here. and they've probably ventured the furthest away from what you should have on this golf course. So we're going to restore the greens to the original size, shape, angles, orientation, all those things. Well, that seems pretty simple, right? Well, unfortunately, these greens in the past, they've added material on top of them. The greens have gotten higher and higher. They've gotten smaller. They're now just little circles, and these greens originally had various eccentric shapes and great hole locations running off in the corners. All of that's been lost. The beauty of it is the original Donald Ross greens were just buried but not destroyed. So they're down underneath all of that material, anywhere from 1 foot to 2 feet down in places. So these greens had a lot of pitch to them. They added material to slow the surface down as green speeds increase. So we can go down. It's sort of an archaeological dig. So what we're going to do, and I did this at Roaring Gap, Memphis Country Club. We actually went down and found the original putting surface that he built in 1926, and that's what we would do here. And we would just peel those layers off, and I'll show you a slide in a moment to tell you how we do that or what we're looking for. It's a really neat process. So we basically go down to the to the original green, and then we're gonna kind of turn modern, and we're gonna build the green using modern specifications. So we'll core the green down, put drainage, which you do not have. There's no drainage system under these greens. So, preaching to the choir, huh? So we'll put a drainage system in, a gravel layer in, root zone, and then expand the greens back out and reset the contours. So you got a lot of issues. You got some old contamination. You got dead areas in the greens, and a lot of that stems from poor construction and somebody just trying to improve a situation short term, putting band-aids. But one of my visits, I wanted to go down and see if I could find that old original green. And what we're looking for is, a lot of times when Ross would build a green, he's going to use on-site materials. So he's going to pile up, in this case, it's going to be a fairly sandy material. So, they're clearing the old citrus trees off the golf course, they're piling them, they're burning them, and they're using some of that organic matter from the cinders. And they're mixing it with that, trying to create a little organic layer, then they'd spread some on the surface to help the green establish itself. So, unfortunately, I love using laser pointers, but it won't show up on the screen. But you see this dark layer down at the bottom, and it sort of looks a little bit like a swirl cake. Well, that's what we're looking for, is that where they would take the horses and mules. Weren't any dozers out here, so they're turn plowing that organic into that sand, and then they're spreading a little on the surface. So you see a sort of a really black layer. So that was the greens for a number of years. I don't know how many years. And then they needed to renovate them. They just piled sand on top of them. And it looks to me like they added about 4 inches one time and about another 10 to 12 a second time. Because further up the green is another organic layer, and then some cleaner sand, and then the organic layer that you play on today. So the next most important thing is bunkers. So we've talked a little bit about bunkers have been removed, bunkers have been added. Whoever added all the bunkers behind the greens, the little volcanoes, we were trying to come up with a name for those today, but it's not appropriate for the room. But anyway, the bunkers have just morphed into something that they don't resemble anything that Donald Ross would approve of at all. The edges all turn up like little volcanoes. Really, they prevent golf balls from going in them unless you land in them. And Donald Ross, he preferred that your ball, if it's bouncing toward a bunker on the ground, that it go on into the bunker. So we want to restore that. We don't want to keep you out of the bunkers, but if you're trying to get in one, we want you to go ahead and run your ball in it. So you can see, there's a lot going on with the bunkers. We're going to reinstate the greenside bunkers. We're going to clean them up, bring them up to the greens, bring the greens out. So we're looking for greens and bunkers that are much tighter together. So we're going to reintegrate that tight separation. And one of the things that I'm doing here that we'll talk a little bit about as we go through the hole by hole So what happens to the bunkers we're not restoring? Some of these are the little short bunkers, little directional bunkers. We're gonna actually shape some of those up and not put sand in them. And that's something I've seen Ross do late in his career. But we want those earthen forms out there. So we go from a golf course that's just flat and benign, fairways just flowing down to where we have little areas that rise up out of the ground. And now instead of the fairway just going straight, it's moving back and forth laterally across the topography. And that's something Ross talked about in his book. He liked the holes to zigzag. And you'll see that when we get into the hole by hole. But to give you some examples, this is 17th hole at Sarah Bay. This is very, very similar to the original hole here. There was a set of bunkers out short of the green, so those had been removed, and we put those back. And that's a Ross drawing there on the right, so you can see where we've got some grass folding over, you know, down the face of the bunker a little bit. The sand is a little bit flatter in the bottom. So this is one of your bunkers on the left, and that's some of the restored bunkers at Sarah Bay. They looked identical when I started to yours. So that's a natural progression for the sand to climb up and eat away the grass face. So that sand's just sort of curling up, and then the grass folds over. And that's something that he brought over from Scotland. If you've been to Scotland, you know the revetted and the steep wall bunkers. So he's trying to create the things that he learned as a young man at Royal Dornet. So as the project goes, this is very comprehensive. We're going to renovate the tees, the fairways, the roughs, you know, the greens, the bunkers, new irrigation system, all those things. But with the amount of play you're getting, your tees are too small. They're compacted. They need to be completely renovated, new turf put on the golf course. So basically all we're doing to the tees is really just lowering the tees down. We're going to basically till the whole golf course about 10 inches deep, reshape them, lower them down, spread them out, and give you much more teeing area. Align them a little bit to the landing areas, add the back tees, add the forward tees, and install new turf. Irrigation system's far gone. You've got single heads around your greens. You cannot water your greens separate from your surrounds. That needs to be rectified. So about a 700 head sprinkler system, new pipe, new wiring throughout the golf course. That's the foundation. Irrigation is the foundation of a golf course to be successful. There's no point in investing money in this golf course if you're not going to support it with good, adequate irrigation. You've spent some money on your pump station. It was talked about a couple nights ago, the VFD, variable frequency drive, so you've already got that accomplished. But we want to expand the coverage, head-to-head coverage, out into the roughs. We're going to peel some layers of trees back. We're going to try to widen the golf holes out, extend the turf out a little bit wider, and try to restore the golf course a little more like the playing widths we were talking about today. You know, Ross's original fairways would be 50 yards wide, and a lot of yours are 25 to 30. So we need to take some of the inside trees out and a lot of the little palms and pines and things like that, and then we can establish turf and expand our fairway widths. So your fairways and regulations should improve.
You promise?
Anyway, so we've got a lot. That's just a slide of, I think that's 12. You know, the turf is beyond its normal lifespan. Drainage issues, nematodes, things like that. Fairways have a lot of little bird bass. You know, there's an organic layer under all these fairways that prevents the drainage from working properly. As you know, when you get persistent rain events, it builds up in the surface, gets real soft. Now your carts are on the cart paths. The beauty of what we're going to do, we're going to till that, bring all that sand back to the surface, so the frequency of carts being on the path is going to be reduced, which is good for a pace of play and revenue also. So we till them, we spray them out, we till them, we box blade them. We don't want to make them perfectly smooth. We want this golf course to feel like it was built in 26. So we'll kind of wrinkle it up, and that's some of the things we do. We call it antiquing. So then the whole golf course will be resprigged with a new variety of Bermuda. And we're looking at one called Tiff Tuff. Tiff Tuff's been out about 5 or 6 years. The beauty of Tiff Tuff is it's very drought tolerant. So we know we have a situation here where we don't have an abundance of water. But Tiff Tuff will stay green at a much lower moisture level in the soil. So we can use less water, keep a nice presentable green golf course, and it's a very, very durable grass. We're using it almost exclusively on all of our projects now. I've been very happy with it. But here you can see some tree issues. I'm sure that, you know, planting the trees, whoever initiated the plan was well-meaning, and they're beautifying the golf course. And unfortunately, trees get taller and wider, and they just spread out, and then they just push your suitable turf to the center of the golf hole, and you start to lose situations like this where, you know, your fairway cut's coming down, you got very poor turf, you got tree roots here. Some of these live oaks are so close to the greens and the fairways, you know, the tree roots are in the greens, in the bunkers, extending well out into the fairway. So we are going to have to take out a lot of the little palms and the little underlying trees that I sort of deem they kind of clutter the place up, but you have some great specimen trees on this property. So if we can clean out around those where you see the freestanding specimen oaks, you know, this golf course can be magnificent. The views across the property, you want to see across multiple golf holes instead of just down these little corridors. We are addressing the practice facility. We've got a proposal to direct the practice tee away from 18 tees, so we're not in a constant battle of hitting at each other there. So you'll see in the plan, we'll get to that at the end, but move the tee forward, enlarge the tee, add a little short game area over there with a formal green. So let's get into the hole by hole summary. So these are just slides of this plan right here, and I'm gonna kind of just drill down on the specifics and to not be redundant, but I'll talk a little bit about what this plan does. But if you look at the plan, you'll see these little forms here. That's an old bunker site. So it's just a little hatched area. That's the face of an old bunker that's not being rebuilt, but the little form's being built. Then you can see the bunkers that are being restored in the fairways, and you'll see the little dash blinds up at the green. You can see at number 1 green, see how much smaller? The dash line is the existing green. The solid line out is the area we're going to expand and reclaim. So as we take these greens down and expand them out, we're going to recapture these great hole locations. So you're going to have larger greens, wider approaches. The greens are going to be lower in profile, so that fairway flows right up into that green instead of that real abrupt upslope that prevents a ball from bouncing onto the green. So if you're concerned about it making the golf course harder, I think the golf course is going to be much more playable. The beauty of Ross's work is the everyday player, there's plenty of green, plenty of subtlety in the middle and the middle body of the green. And then when we want to turn the heat up a little bit, have an event, we can just push the pin off into one of the little corners. Pin goes in the corner. Now you as a player have to pay attention to where the flag is. Now you've got to play off to one side of the fairway. Well, Ross put a bunker over there. I don't want to play next to the bunker. That's what Ross asked you to do. Skirt the fairway bunkers, set up your angles. So he's making you think your way around the golf course. It's really just a beautiful way of playing the game. You can play right down the middle if you want, or you can take on some of the challenges, improve your angles, have multiple shot options into those greens. So starting off on 1, enlarge putting green, we're going to do our tee work. We're going to start you off with a very authentic golf hole. So we have no fairway bunkers. We're going to have 5 fairway bunkers defining the landing area. But you can see how the landing area moves side to side, works its way into the green. So these bunkers are all, you can see these bunker forms out there where they push the dirt in. You can see the little remnants. I'm better at it than most people, but they were all there. Some of those bunkers are in what is now treed areas. So the inside edges of these golf holes are going to have some trees removed to get it back out to the side. So on the second hole, which is one of your most difficult holes, I didn't see the need for us to fully bunker that tee shot. It's a very long golf hole, so we're going to bring back some of the bunker forms and then restore some of the bunkers leading into the greens. So a lot of times what Ross was doing with those bunkers out short of the green, if you've missed a tee shot and you're trying to recover from underneath the trees, they're between you and the green, and they're making you negotiate, carve the shot, carry it over the top. Donald Ross just basically viewed the ground out there as, you know, what's the ball going to do? I mean, what's it going to do when it gets on the ground? Which way is it going to go? So again, you can see we're taking, you can see the greens getting expanded out in the front corners, much broader and wider. The bunker on the right's being reduced in size and moved away from the green, a little bit of a chipping area over the back. By far one of the most unique greens I've seen Ross do in my career. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a molar, you know, a tooth. But there's a little tree on that back when it extends further back. There's a tree sitting, a little small oak tree sitting right at the edge of that green. Next time you go out and play, look back there and you'll see a little form of dirt that goes and just drops off to that tree. That was a hole location back there. Just short of that tree was a pinnable area, but that green's probably half the size, and the bunkers have crept into what is now green. So you can see we're going to reset some bunker forms, you know, short of the fairway. So what you'll see instead of flat ground is you'll see a little avenue between those little mounded forms. Those are about 2.5, 3.5 feet tall, and they vary and they're sort of irregular and they'll be in rough grass, but they'll look like an old bunker that Donald Ross filled in. That's my take on it. But, so we want to bring back that side-to-side movement of the golf course. Fourth hole. See, we're moving the tees to the left, adding a new tee back. So we're going from 433 to 460. The original hole was 428. So we're bringing the fairway, the landing area, the corner back into play. The original bunkers, fairway bunkers, were right in here in this corner. So you've got a lot of newly planted trees in there. We're going to push those bunkers out to the corner. You guys that are trying to cut the corner, you're going to have a new little set of bunkers to negotiate there. But it's also, you know, what Ross was doing is he's directing. He's moving you around the golf course. He's trying to steer you away from an adjoining golf hole or something like that. So you can see how we're going to push the player a little bit away from number two. And I'll just mention this, but Ross also had a tee, and you can still see the tee to the right of two here that played into three. There's a little sandy spot. Maybe he didn't like me telling that. I don't know. But you can, you know, those are some little things that you discover in the process. And but again, look at the green. Look at the back hole locations, the front right and front left that are lost, and the strategy that can come from that. So we got a new bunker going in short left, and that's just up on the hill before we drop off and go off the little hill there. The bunker, greenside bunker front right, there's a mound out there that on Ross's drawing, it's to the right of the greenside bunker. That was the front edge of the green. So you can see that green coming out into that bunker site there, and that bunker pulling out just short and right. New bunker front left. Number 5. This is the type of golf hole you look at, and it just looks like a runway going straight up the hill. There's no character, there's no thought process whatsoever today. But Ross had used these bunkers up the hill. There's a couple little palm trees there, and you can see where he cut them into the upslope, and he's going to cause you to steer a little bit to the right side of the hole. So what he's doing, he's steering you away from 6. He also had a bunker in the left side of 6 that kind of worked in unison with those, so there's going to be 3 bunkers out there on the hill. But there again, we broke up the straightness of the hole. We work around it. We're zigzagging in. But look at the back the back portion of that green, there's a little bunker sitting back there. It looks like a little volcano sitting on top. That's on top of the putting surface. It's on top of the original Ross green. So we'll bring that, scrape that off, push the green back in there. Go for that one. I mean, go for that whole location when you got a couple quarters on the line. I mean, that's going to be tough to get to. So that's the kind of hole location that we can change the complexity of the golf course just with a hole location. But this will be the kind of golf course that you'll never get tired of playing, and it'll never be the same golf course day to day. And you'll always look forward to playing it because of all of the variety that he built into these greens. So you can see the new bunkering and the green expansion. It's probably one of your most talked about holes. This is the type of hole, you know, some people call them volcano par threes. You know, just little pedestal par three, usually a shorter hole. Ross here, now he's going from allowing you to bounce the ball in, he's asking you to hit the ball in the air with a lot of spin. He's going to examine every club in your bag multiple ways. So he's asking you to be airborne with a shot, but it's usually with one of your shorter clubs. So a couple of things of note that well, it's just a habit to try to use the lace point, but we're going to combine this tee with a new back tee on 9. I don't know what's causing that, but adding a little forward tee for the ladies across the path. About a 105 tee. I just thought that was appropriate for that length hole now. And we'll expand the green back out, restore the bunkers, add the bunker on the left. So that hole will be fully restored. That's an example. That's Memphis Country Club's sort of volcano, their 4th hole. Very small green, much smaller green than what you have. That green's about 3,700 square feet, and it's 14 feet in the air off the back of the green. You scoot it long there, you'll never forget it. And you will not want to go long ever again, kind of like you do here on 6. And you go down the back, and you got a tough road to hoe, because he rolled that green up, so it's working pretty quick from back edge back into the greens. So, you know, getting all that putting surface along those edges is very important. Going to 7, bunker forms off the tee, creating the movement. Fairway bunkers defining both sides of the landing area. Going to add a bunker, short right. That is not an original Ross bunker. That's a bunker I'm adding. In Ross's day, you're hitting it about 200 yards. You're hitting another 200 yards, and you're wedging onto a hole like this. Now we're playing much further up that fairway, especially for the good players that are laying up. We need to give them a little something to think about. So if you're going to hit it, you know, go for it in 2. You're going right over that bunker. You can see it overlaps with the approach. So what that bunker will do, it will disguise the land beyond it. And that's one of those bunkers that Ross, they talk about Ross putting bunkers out shorter greens that look like they're right against the putting surface. This will be one of those bunkers. I've never really heard him describe it that way. It's just the way it happens to work out. So when you're out in that fairway looking up, you're not going to see the gap in the green. It's going to look like it's right up against the putting surface. But as you play the golf course, you'll know there's a good bit of distance. It's probably 40 yards of distance there. Great hole location back left. It's really clear to see out there. If you're out on the golf course, look at the back left corner of the field pad. You'll see a great hole location back there. 8, one of your little short par 4s. Great little hole. Semi-blind shot over the hill. So we're going to use one of his directional bunkers going up the slope. So we're going to add a tee, lengthen the golf hole a little bit, cut that bunker back into the face of the hill. The original Ross course here, there were no trees, and there were 3 more bunkers between 8 and 9. So you see those little earthen forms there. We're just going to replace those with some little hummocks and things like that. Restore all the bunkers. That green, the bunkers are still intact, except for one of the 2 little bunkers in the front have been combined into 1. So we'll just break those back apart, and you'll see the 6 bunkers surrounding the green. But look how small that green has gotten compared I mean, it's lost. Back right is a really, really good hole location that's been lost. 9th hole. So I mentioned a little bit about the tees. Going to enlarge the tees, move it a little bit right, clear out some trees. And that's sort of, there's a cart path that goes in there, and you can see the tee sitting in where that little cart path loops. Clear some trees out on the right and left, reset the fairway bunkers. But the most important thing you'll see here is up at the green. Right now you have one greenside bunker on the right. He had 3 bunkers that worked out diagonally across the approach. So if you play up the right side, you've got to negotiate those bunkers. You take the long way home, which none of us want to do. We always want trying to shorten a golf hole. So if you play out to the left, then you open the approach. So you can just, you know, as I describe these holes, you can kind of understand the way he's taking you through a series of strategic thought process. You know, just you learn the golf course. It was very important to him that you learn the nuances of the golf course. So if you had a guess, you'd say, hey, you want to favor it up the left side here, so you can negotiate the bunker so you don't have to go over those bunkers on the right. He's also pushing you away from the first hole. Another green. Trees so close to the green is half the size. Great hole locations lost all around, especially in the back corners. Number 10, going to move the tees a little bit to the right. Going to take that cart path that swings out well to the left there. Going to take it out, move the cart path up, and then we're going to add a little putting green on this side of the street. So have a little 3,000 or 4,000 square foot putting green out here between 10 tees and 13. So you can see it sitting right in there. Bunker on the short left gets restored. The big bunker up on the hill that you see today, we just clean it up and restore it. And then I'm adding a bunker. Ross had 2 bunkers, front right and front left. I'm going to add a bunker, or leave the bunker actually, middle right. But I want a bunker there the way that landform works away down toward 11T. So we're going to keep that bunker. This green has not lost nearly the square footage, but you know, Kevin and I were talking about this fairway, the difficulty. We were talking about the difficulty of being able to land the ball on the right side of the fairway and it almost run off to the left side of that fairway. Well, the fairway is about half as wide as it needs to be because of the tree planting and the tree encroachment and growth. So we want to peel those trees back, and then we can create enough fairway that you can land it in the right half of the fairway, plus put new turf and those kind of things, and it'll be a little more suitable to that tee shot. Going over to 11, green needs to be expanded out much wider. Not a lot going on here. You really lengthen this hole probably more than what's necessary for that small of a green. But anyway, that green has been built up. I sort of have a little bit of mixed feelings about the green because of the mangroves, and there's limitations on what we can do to those mangroves, but we need to keep the green up so we can see it over those. So that's something that we'll get into, during the process, but pretty straightforward process there. So now on 12, now we're making a pretty significant change to the golf course, but we're actually going back to what was originally there. So when the water tower was built, 12 was shortened. So the old original tees sat on that site, but fortunately they left us enough room between the water tower and 11 green. So you can see here we're down here on this bottom slide, you can see we're putting a couple of tees all the way back up against the fence, back up on the hill, so we're at about 60 yards back to the golf hole. So you can have this beautiful view off a high elevation down into the valley of the golf hole. And this is probably one of the first holes I saw here that just reeked of Donald Ross. The way it flows down and goes up the hill. I always loved his ridgeline greens, the way he would flow down through a valley back up to the top of a hill. But 12 presents us with some really interesting, decisions in that his plans, that bunker short left, there were 4 bunkers there on the drawings. All of our aerial evidence only showed 1, a much larger single bunker. So instead of building what's on the plans, we're going to follow what he actually built. So there'll be a bunker. This cart path sort of turns out there and it'll be cut into the face of the hill on the left. So if you're missing the ball left and you're trying to recover up the hill, it's going to interfere with your recovery shot there. You can see we got taking the bunker out at the front left corner, adding a little small pot bunker, middle left, and then we reset the bunkers on the right. I think there's one there now, and that'll become 2 bunkers. And then we recapture that great back right hole location. So you can see the way he's working this golf course. If that pin's back right, you need to play up the left side to have a good angle going into there. 13, probably one of the, I would say one of the most benign tee shots. It's, blind tee shot. He didn't see any need to bunker it. Ross didn't want to bunker, put the bunkers on the other side of the hill, so he's letting you go over the hill. He didn't guide you over the hill, which surprised me a little bit. But anyway, we go over the hill. So this green is not the original. The green that's out there today has been moved back. It's not the original Ross green. But in some of the aerials, we see some bunkers. There were 2 bunkers out short of the green, about 25, 30 yards out. And we're going to just put some bunker forms back there. And my thinking on that, we need to keep them fairly low, because I don't really want to force the player to, try to have to hit it really high and end up in the lunch crowd. So, but we're gonna ring the green with bunkers there, and so you can see where we're going to protect the back of the green, try to contain the shots running over the green, move the cart path a little bit further back. But just a really good, solid, straightforward golf hole. So here on 14, Ross's drawing shows a much smaller pond off to the left. And the pond that you have today, I think, is the one that was built, but it really reaches out into the golf hole and creates sort of a 90-degree dog leg. And it forces especially the high handicap players and the shorter players to play away from the green, in my opinion, and really makes the second shot too difficult for that player. So what we want to do is bring that pond in, fill it on the left side of the fairway, and create a softer angle, so you can, if you're willing to challenge the edge of the lake, you can shorten the golf hole. And you don't have to carry the water. You can bounce it along the edge of the lake. So we'll take that dirt from up in front of the green, so you can see where we're expanding the lake all the way up into what is now a greenside bunker and pushing that green back just a little bit. Because I'm hearing a lot of stories about, some of the guys driving that green or trying to drive over the green. It's not a sufficient challenge. So we'll push that back a little bit and then add a bunker short right. Am I talking to Kevin? Is that?
No.
Is he the one? You're the one driving?
It's those big hitters back in the corner there.
Well, they'll still be able to get there. It'll just take a little more accuracy to do it. But you can see the green aims back at the tees. We'll enlarge the tees, and really a neat little golf hole. Move the cart path away from the golf hole through the fairway there. As I watch, a lot of the play, there's a lot of action going off, onto that path. We'll do some mounding over there and add that bunker and kind of contain the golf hole. But you'll still have the option, and that's the beauty of Ross. He gives you multiple options. So we want to maintain that philosophy. 15, okay. It's the elephant in the room. Bad drainage. What are we going to do? So in the process of, and I heard on Tuesday night talking about a study of this golf hole. Actually, in 2015, you had a Turf Drainage of America came in and did a proposal on how to repair this golf hole and put in an electric sump system. And what it does is it allows you to drain a golf hole that's below the discharge point. So between 15 and 17, we'd put a sump basin, connect all of our drainage into that sump. The sump is controlled by an electric float valve. So when the creek's up and water can't gravity flow into the creek, we can still drain the golf hole, pump it into the creek. So all the pipe work that would be connected under those 2 golf holes. Now this plan also calls for building 15 up. 15 in a swampy situation like that is settled. they just tend to sag. So we're going to take some sandy material out of the hill that's over on 17. In a project like this, you generate a lot of debris, a lot of old grass and things like that you scrape off. So we can dig into that big sand dune, bury all that old turf, bring that nice clean sand. I went out and potholed that, and it's got some beautiful sugar sand in it. And then come in and add a little bit of character and surface drainage to 15 in the low areas of 17. And in conjunction with the sump system, we'll resolve the problems on that golf hole. Now to the design, we're going to add a new back tee. We're going to combine the tee with the back tee on 18, move the best players over near Curlew. We'd like to clean up the edge of Curlew there a little bit, just so you're looking straight down. You'll have a view straight down the creek. Then the fairway will be off to your right. We'll make some repairs to the fairway. Between 15 and 17, we need to do something to sort of define those golf holes. We're going to put some of the little rolling hummocks over there, break that ground up a little bit, and kind of separate those golf holes and contain the balls that are trying to run from 15 over to 17. It'll sort of resist the ball, from running that far over. So then jumping across the creek, we add a little pot bunker just to give you something to think about on your second shot. And then really one of the coolest greens on the golf course. I mean, it's got some hole locations that are really well off the green that exist today. You can see in the back left. And it's clearly visible, the old green running out, and coming around. Those bunkers have been removed, so we put those back. Bring the green out on the right, bunker tighten right back up to it. Neat golf hole. 16, you can tell he's introducing you to the turn. You're getting ready to come back toward the house, and it's a strong par 3. But everything's been removed on it. You got a little bunker short left, a little bunker off to the right. So you can see we're putting 4 bunkers back, putting a bunker form back, moving the cart path off to the left, enlarging some tees, lengthening the golf hole a little bit. But look at the green. That's one of the largest Ross greens I've seen designed. It's almost 9,000 square feet. So you're going to have a big target, but in his notes he describes, split the back of the green with a couple little plateaus and some really interesting things. Now I know what he means because I've done those kind of greens and I've seen them. Brad's seen a lot of them, and he was very creative in these back sections. So a much bigger target, but just a great looking par 3 that's, instead of just going straight in, it's going to work out to the right, back to the left, back to the right, then up into the green. 17, we're going to add some length to 17. Up near on the other side of the water tower, we're going to add a tee, back up on top of the hill. I think it got cut off on my slide there. But there's a new tee back about 35 yards up across the cart path next to the water tower there. But look at the difference. Think about what you do today when you've hit a drive. You've hit your drive into the fairway, and what you think about or you don't think about. You don't really think about anything because there's nothing to negotiate, or there's no strategy to the second shot. It just bombs away. Hit it as hard as you can, go find it. Well, that's not what Ross had in mind. He had other things for you to think about. So he had a little nest of 4 bunkers. I showed you the bunkers at Sarah Bay. It's eerily similar to the 17th hole at Sarah Bay. Great golf hole. Fairly short for par 5s, but it really makes you think and negotiate those bunkers. So we got a nest of 4 bunkers, 2 little bunkers protrude out, but look at the movement. So you're going to think about, do I lay up short of the 4 bunkers? Do I try to go over them and get a little closer? Do I want to take the 4 bunkers out of play and risk going into the next 2? All of those kind of things. So I always, one of the things I comment on with Donald Ross is he'll have you putting your hand on 2 or 3 clubs. And if I've got you doing that, or he's got you doing that, he's got you. Because if you don't pull something out confidently, you're going to tense up and tend to make a mistake. But that's the way he thought about, this golf course, and really making you think your way, kind of like a sailor tacks their way around across the ocean, point to point. he's setting you up on this golf course the same way. So just really, I mean, the green is just a fraction of its size. This green has really been elevated. So lower that green back down, expand it, add the bunker back on the right. Got a beautiful golf hole. So we're finishing up the golf course. We've got to extend the tee back a little bit. Actually add some tee forward on the next tee. Sliding those tees a little bit left, closer to the path, a little lower in profile. I'm really responding to all the range balls that I see over there. I'm trying to move you away from the range ball. I'm trying to address it on the practice area also and redirecting that line of play. But again, we have a semi-blind tee shot. Right now, there's nothing to guide you over the hill. Ross had 5 bunkers that you could see, little small pot bunkers that were sitting on both sides of that fairway that created a little narrow avenue between them. So we're going to create those earthen forms, add some mounding to the right to help contain shots coming both ways. Do everything we can. There are still going to be some balls. Go over there, take the cart path up the left side, and you can see the green there. We got a big long bunker on the right. We're going to pull that bunker back out, reduce the size of that bunker on the right, extend some shortcut off, and reclaim that original green. Last but not least, practice facility. So what I've done is I've moved the practice tee about 100 feet out, and I've suggested we add a little short game area back where the tee is today, instead of the one that's across the street that's really not kept up as a formal short game area. So this will give you a practice bunker, a little fairway area, you know, to lob some shots and work on your short game. So we've turned the tee, and then this practice area actually extends into what is now the Sterling Links Par 3 dog park, that kind of area. But we've got some you know, available land there to do a really world-class practice facility. You know, nice defined target greens, plenty of distance. Probably even have enough room for a small tee down at the other end if the golf staff. But you know, you've got that whole, the Sterling Links area is, I mean, it's really something that we're not addressing in the master plan that you really need to think about. You know, some sort of short, you know, 6-hole reversible par 3. We're doing a lot of them now. It'd be a great asset to add to the golf round. You know, the player finishes 18 holes, they've still got half a day. You know, give them something else to go and you know, something really dramatic.
Golf too. Great
yeah. Seniors, extending your career of some of the senior players. If you're not up to playing the big course, you want to go over and just hit some you know, shorter iron, shorter shots, things like that. The Cradle at Pinehurst is one that's, you know, really caught on. We're doing two par 3 facilities like that right now. I mean, they're catching on and really becoming very popular. But I think that's most of my slideshow. So I'll just go over the schedule. If this is undertaken, done at one time, we'd start in March. The construction is going to go about 3.5, 4 months. The grassing of the golf course would overlap into that schedule. So as you're sprigging the golf course and you're adding sod and things like that, it would start before the end of construction. So you'd try to wrap that up by the end of June. So June, July, August, September, you're growing the sprigs in on the greens and in the fairways. Should be playing golf by mid-October, maybe as late as November. So it's a fairly short window. It's never easy to have to do without your golf course, but you know, this golf course is tired and worn out, and to just go out here and keep trying to stick little band-aids on it is not prudent. It's not a successful approach. This master plan and project is not. It's very practical. Doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. You can spend twice as much. We got about, you know, a little less than $1 million on irrigation. You can spend $2 million on irrigation. Some people spend $3.5 and $4 million, the whole project budget on irrigation. But we've estimated a very, you know, standard irrigation system that gives us good adequate coverage, good control over the system. Superintendent can do his job and grow the kind of turf that you deserve to have under your feet. But I think that's the end of my presentation, and thank you for hearing me out.
Kris, thank you for your time. Kris has come down here a couple extra times that were outside the scope of his master plan on his own dime, and we really appreciate his helping us out, and it's a little gift from the members of Dunedin Golf Club.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Kris. So you've gotten to see a little bit about the ins and outs of the final product of this restored golf course. I'm going to talk a little bit about the marketing and the financial impact, because obviously the city of Dunedin, if they decide to go down this path, is going to be making a significant investment. So the question is, what are you going to get back for your investment? So I'm going to try to talk a little bit about that. First of all, I had Brad Becken said, Kevin, he said, if you really want to get a great book about Donald Ross, buy this book called Discovering Donald Ross by Bradley Klein. So my book came in yesterday, and Bradley signed it, and he goes, to Kevin Janiga, because Dunedin Golf Club embodies Ross's genius. And it just kind of blew me away that this is one of the foremost experts on Donald Ross golf courses, wrote probably one of the most formative books, and he actually, when he signed it, he actually made that comment, and they're like, I know about your golf course, I know what it was, I know what it can be. So I thought that was really interesting. So let's talk, Kris has talked a lot about Ross's design philosophy. I'll give you a little more background. Of course, Ross was born in Dornoch, Scotland in 1872. He came over to the U.S. just around the turn of the century, started his architect business around 1900, and between 1900 and his death in 1948, he built over 400 courses. In the golf community, Ross is kind of considered the Michelangelo of golf. He built, I think, Brad, would you tell me the total number that you guys have been able to track so far of courses that were built?
Built or worked on maybe around 420.
420, and there's about 369 that still exist today, and this is the only guy who got to play them all. I'm really jealous. But I was thinking a little bit, you got 369 Ross courses in the United States. How rare is a Ross course? Well, there used to be about, 17,000 golf courses in the United States. We've lost a lot in the last 15 years, 20 years. So there's about 15,500 courses. So when you do the math, only 2.4% of all golf courses in the United States can claim themselves to be a Donald Ross design. That's how rare they are. And you throw on top of it what Kris said earlier, only about 20% of his courses that he built were championship caliber that could hold major tournaments like the senior PGA that we had here. So now you're down to 0.5%, or 1 out of every 200 courses has the pedigree that this golf course has. So it's really, we're very, very fortunate to be able to play this course, and even more fortunate to have the prospect of having this thing restored to its true full potential. Ross was also known for his genius of fitting the holes, the golf courses into the property. He worked on link-style courses close to the ocean like ours. He did things that were more inland, but he was always really good about doing that and creating very memorable holes. And as Brad talked about a lot, he made the golf courses playable. So I think there's been some concern. I've heard talking to a few of the people that, hey, you guys, going to restore this course. It's going to be too hard. I can't play it. It couldn't be any different than that. You're going to have a lot more shot options. You're going to be able to roll the ball up if you want. The fairways are going to be faster and firmer. You're going to get some roll instead of hitting, plugging, and being mud all over the ball. The greens are going to be larger, so you'll have more entry points. It's just going to be a lot more fun. And it kind of goes back, I don't know if any of you look at the sign on number 14T, but there's a whole little history on Donald Ross there. And at the very end, his motto was that golf should be a pleasure, not a penance. And that's what this project is all about. Let's talk about the current status of the Dunedin Golf Course. So we've had a pretty good run the last 2 years. And in 2019, we did about 39,000 rounds of golf. We went up to a little over 43,000 in 2020, and we almost hit 50,000 this year. Hit 49,600. So that sounds great. One of the questions I got was, well, what's the upside? Well, I mean, if you had perfect weather, you never had a rain day, you did 9-minute tee times, and you had every tee, you could do about 76, 78,000 rounds. Well, that's not going to happen because you got weather days and stuff. But in going through the archives, I did find articles about our course back in the 90s. We were doing about 65,000 rounds a year out here during our heyday. So there's still a lot of upside potential. We have the potential to do even more rounds. Another thing that's happened recently, of course, we got 240 members that account for about a third of the rounds played. We have done some outsourcing of the maintenance. We hired a firm called Down to Earth back in July. They've tried to address some of the issues out here as best they can. I think they've done a pretty good job. But as Kris said earlier, the course is just tired and worn out. The irrigation system's failing. The greens are well past their life cycle. They were done in 2006 or 7. We have drainage issues, encroaching trees. And of course, as Kris talked about, the greens have shrunk about 30 to 50% since 26. So we don't have as many pin placements, and they're a lot higher. They've gotten elevated. So that's kind of where we are today. Of course, Kris talked about the restoration opportunity, so I really won't spend a lot of time other than the whole project is estimated at $3.8 million and about 7 to 8 months to complete. So how does that compare to the plan that the National Golf Foundation presented to the city, the sustainability plan? Well, I'd like to share that with you because there's some big differences here. So if you go down the list, you've got the NGF plan on the left, restoration plan on the right. NGF plan addresses the new, needs a new irrigation, address drainage issues. The NGF plan addresses that, so does ours. Regrass fairways and tees, both of them do that. Regrass greens, restore greenside bunkers, they both do that. Now here's where the differences start though. The NGF plan doesn't restore the greens to the original raw size or configuration. It doesn't remove trees and reestablish the original sight lines, widening the fairways, making it more playable. Doesn't do anything to restore the raw fairway bunkers and teeing grounds. Does a little bit to the driving range, certainly not to the extent that Kris's restoration plan does. And the total cost for the NGF plan is $2.75 million, take 5-6 months. This plan that we're talking about tonight is about $1 million more. It's $3.8 million. But the big difference is what the incremental revenue is going to be. In the NGF plan, they are estimating an increase of about $220,000 a year in golf revenue pre and post work done. So at $2.75 million, that's over 10 years to pay back your investment. Ours is more expensive, $3.8 million, but based on what I think are very conservative estimates, and this is in talking with 3 or 4 different public Ross courses that have done restorations, we'll do around $1.1 million a year, about $5.5 million over 5 years in additional net golf revenue, and that includes taking back about $250,000 in extra money that we'll be spending on maintenance. So our current budget's around $750,000. This would take our maintenance budget up to $1 million, and I've obviously deducted that out of the net revenue. So now you got a plan that's got less than a 4-year payback versus one that's well over 10 years. So even if I don't even play golf, I'm just a businessman, which I was for 35 years. Which one would you pick? If you're going to put a $3 or $4 million investment, do you want to pay back your investment in 4 years or 10 years? Yeah. So it makes a lot of financial sense. But there's more numbers layered on top of that I'll talk about in a little bit. Some of the assumptions that were in the NGF plan, they talked about proposed public greens fees between $20 and $95. Most of the top-notch municipal golf courses in the country have gone to what they call a 3-tier pricing system. So they charge the lowest rate for the resident, usually make them buy a resident golf card. And then they charge a slightly higher rate if you're not from the area or not from the town, but you come from the state. And then they charge the highest rate for the out-of-town resident. So in our plan, we estimated $45 for a Dunedin resident to play. They buy a $50 golf card. but it costs you $85 if you're a resident of Florida, but you're not a resident of Dunedin, and then $105 if you're out of state. And those are, especially that last number is kind of conservative. And that's exactly what Harding Park in San Francisco charges for their public course that they restored. So also on the dues side, the NGF plan has a cap of 225 members. This plan, we've capped it at 300 DGC members. They're recommending $3,100 a year for dues on average. It kind of gives you some fluctuation. That's about $258 a month. We're proposing post-restoration to charge members $300, but if you've been a member for 5 years or more prior to the restoration starting, you'll get a 10% discount in perpetuity. So you'll pay $270, and then our associate fee would be, for associate members under 40, would be $160. So those are all kind of the assumptions. But I think the big takeaway is here, not only is this a plan that does more for the community, more about preserving our historic asset, but it just makes financial sense. I didn't have this slide in Tuesday night, but I just want to share with you some of the rates at some of the other really high-end courses. Bethpage Black, which I've had the good fortune of playing in Long Island. They've had a couple U.S. Opens there. It's totally public. They don't even sell memberships. $65 if you're from Long Island or from in-state. It's about $130 out of state. Won't go through them all. Chambers Bay is between $90 and $115. Torrey Pines, I think somebody here had played Torrey Pines that was telling me. It's for Torrey Pines South, which is the big course where they have the Open, it's $63 if you're a local resident. You get the golf card. If you come from out of town, it's well over $200. I think, what did you tell me you paid? It can be $350. So I mean, that's a way you can, there's some wiggle room. And obviously we're making a lot of some assumptions on the financials here, but they're grounded in actual real life numbers. Kris Spence did a golf course in Mooresville, North Carolina. Pre-restoration, it was doing about $800,000 a year in golf revenue. It's up to $2 million now. Charleston, South Carolina, they have an old Seth Rayner course. They have doubled their revenue since they reopened in January of 21. Mill Creek, Brad could talk to that when I talked to the golf fundraiser up there. They've seen incredible, I think they've gone from, I think you talked about 45,000 rounds for both golf courses. They're going to be pushing 90,000 next year. So there is a lot of pent-up demand for really well-done, restored Donald Ross courses. It's not just for golf purists or single-digit or scratch players. There's people want to play these kind of golf courses. Not only are they historically significant, but they're just fun to play. So you can see some of the financial assumptions here. We talked about the $50 resident card. Residents would pay $45. Florida residents would pay $85. Out of state, $105. And then the member dues. And cart fees pretty much stay the same as they are today. So it's very doable. I don't think it's overtaxing. I'll tell you right now, if we go with this plan and we shut the course down for 8 months, we better have an initiation fee when it reopens, because you're going to have people beating the door down to become members. And I think the people that are in this room that are members that have been stuck through all this and put a lot of money and time and effort and spent a lot of money out here to keep this golf course going should be obviously grandfathered in. But anybody that's new that comes post-restoration, I think you can charge a pretty significant initiation fee. And you'll hit 300 so fast you'll make your head spin in terms of members. As Brad was talking about, most of these restored Ross courses have huge waiting lists. So what are the marketing opportunities? Well, one of the things that's it's in some of the financial scenarios. I didn't include it in the golf revenue because it's not golf revenue, but if you assume that you do 50,000 rounds and about 10% of those golfers are out-of-state destination golfers, what would be the local economic impact to Dunedin? Well, the average destination golfer, when they go on a golf trip, they'll spend about $500 a day in greens fees, food, lodging, entertainment. So if you have 5,000 of those people come here, spend 4 days, spend $2,000 times 5,000, that's a $10 million local economic impact for the city of Dunedin. Plus, another opportunity is we had the Senior PGA Championship here from 1945 to 62. I truly believe that we can get that tournament back here, and that would be huge. So you would have the LPGA down at the Pelican, you'd have the Valspar tournament, the PGA tournament at Innisbrook, and right in the middle, you could have a Senior PGA Championship right here at Dunedin Golf Club. And that's an additional positive economic impact for the city of Dunedin. I do believe, though, beyond just the restoration plan, I think the golf course itself needs a long-term strategic plan. I actually spent about 35 years in business and marketing, brand management, and business planning, and I think that's really important that the club have a long-term plan on what they want to do. I think another opportunity that I'll throw out there is this golf course wasn't called Dunedin Golf Club when it opened. It was called Dunedin Isles. And I think if you want to signal to the golf community that this is a new, better, authentic Ross restoration, what not a better way to do that than to change the name back to Dunedin Isles. And that has all kinds of marketing tentacles. Create a new logo, create a lot of buzz, maybe have a new exhibit of Donald Ross memorabilia, all kinds of merchandise, a lot of opportunities there. Another thing, Brad talked about the golf course up in Boardman, Ohio, Mill Creek. They have a full-time fundraiser and marketer up there, and they sell whole sponsorships to local companies. They sell naming rights to their clubhouse, to their pro shop. They're doing all kinds of things to generate, extra revenue around their nameplate. They've got a Donald Ross exhibit up there, I understand. They fully embrace the Ross heritage, all their merchandise, and they're really, really doing a good job. Another opportunity, I know we talk about this a lot, is to partner with the local hospitality companies in the Dunedin area. Have a deal with the Fenway, have a deal with all the hotels, and get some of that business coming our way. I think we need to update our website and do a better job on search engine optimization. We have the opportunity to build a better customer database. I belong to the Florida State Golf Association. I'm starting to see advertisements for golf-related items through their email database. I think they've got a couple thousand people belong to that organization. So a lot to do there. A lot we can do with social media. Certainly, with the restoration, we're going to have tons of national media interest. We can do all kinds of press releases, probably get some kind of special on the Golf Channel, on Golf Digest. So there's going to be a lot of media opportunities for us. And finally, I would just say, hey, I'm here to help. I mean, I've really thoroughly enjoyed this whole project, working with Kris, working with the board, with the grounds committee, and I've got a lot of marketing experience, and I'll be more happy to donate my time to help leverage all the marketing opportunities that will present themselves with the restoration. So just kind of summarize key benefits. We're estimating that we'll generate about $1.1 million in additional net golf revenue post-restoration. That will make us financially sustainable for decades to come. I'm not sure the NGF plan will do that. It'll help you survive for a while, but I don't think it's going to take you to the next level like an authentic Ross restoration will. Second of all, I think it gives Dunedin the opportunity to really become a major golf destination and generate millions of dollars of local economic impact. I think we can host another PGA tournament here. It's been, 60 years since we had one here. Another benefit, it's going to increase the tax base. Home values around this area are going to go up much more quickly than the rest of the area because you got a Donald Ross course nearby. What does that mean? More tax revenue for the city. I'm not even going to venture to estimate what that can be, but I'm sure it's significant. And then finally, really provide a more playable, accessible golf course for the local residents while preserving a really important historic asset for the city, and that's the Dunedin Golf Course. This is truly a gem. I think if you go around and talk to people, especially newer people like myself, I've been here 6.5 years. The reason I moved here is because of this golf course. And I'm so excited about the prospect of us potentially being able to restore this. And finally, it just gives us an avenue to thrive instead of just survive. So next steps, we talked about this Tuesday night. We want to encourage our board to endorse this. We would continue to push the restoration to the city officials. I'm so happy that several of them are here tonight. I know the city's doing a national search right now for a new general manager. As soon as that person is on board, would welcome the opportunity to brief them on what all the work that's been done on this restoration plan. And hopefully the city will come to the conclusion that this is the best path forward and appropriate the proper funds for the restoration project. So with that, we'll take about a 10-minute break and then come back for a Q&A. But one thing I'm just curious at, I mean, this may be a little bit premature, but of the people in the room, based on what you know and what you've heard so far, how many of you would support a restoration plan? Raise your hand. How many of you, obviously, how many of you would still have concerns or reservations that we need to address? Don't be shy. Raise your hand. I expect, yeah. One thing I want to do in the Q&A session, I want those people that have reservations and concerns, and we want to address them as best we can. You know, we may not be able to address all of them, but we want to hear your concerns and reservations, because no plan is perfect from the get-go. We want to make sure we get everybody's voice heard. So when we come back, I would encourage those people that still have some concerns, reservations, there's things that they don't quite like, please ask us some questions, and let's see if we can answer those as best we can. So with that, let's take about a 10-minute break, and we'll come back here. What time is it right now? 7:30, 7:40. Thank you.
Good job, Doug.
Thank you. It's a huge file. Yeah. Well, thanks, man. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. We could probably put it on the Dunedin website. Yeah, it's like a jillion meg. I try. In fact, I can't even email it to anybody. It's so big. So going on, man. Thanks. Thanks. Yeah.
Give me that paper. Good job.
Okay. Yeah, the petition.
Yeah.
Wait till after the Q&A. Yeah, I need to announce it though. Okay, let me announce it. All right. Okay.
Good job.
Thank you. What's your name? Jamie. Jamie, that's right. I didn't recognize you with the beans.
Hey, quick question. If somebody brings it up, because I can't think, but you got a general course, it's all restored. What do you do to run so many rounds, 9-minute tee times?
Yeah.
When we struggle now,
Well,
and with our own membership,
Yeah.
of keeping.
You got to have rangers. Yeah,
Right.
You got to have some
And
supervision.
it doesn't cost a lot to do
No,
that.
no.
And we don't even do it now.
No, and you'll pay back in spades.
Right. But we don't even do it with our own membership.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
So.
And the pace of play will pick up because the course will be more playable, wider, wide
It
open.
will, but it would have to.
Yeah. But you're right. If you're going to have a real high-end golf course, and people travel a long ways to play.
So even as members,
Yeah.
our own members are culprits of not
Yeah.
keeping up.
Yeah.
So,
Probably the fives go away too. And I'm guilty of that.
yeah.
What you got there, man?
That's Florida.
Oh, okay.
His numbers are paying.
Jess, nice to meet you. Okay.
I'm on board. I'm not a golfer. But I live in the community, raising my family here. I work for one of the security agencies. Security.
Yeah.
I was, as my role of special events coordinator for the FBI. I worked the basketball tournament for the last 5 years. So anything security related, I can tell you just from the sponsorship and everything that goes on at Operahead, it's incredible. And we also handle the one down that just happened. So the one, if it were to come here, I mean, the amount of money and the sponsors for the city would be astronomical. Astronomical.
And the nice thing is we've got some room to do some parking over here with par 3 over here with all that vacant land. So,
And other places, as the PGA decides or the senior PGA decides where to go, security is concerned. We have those relationships in place.
Yeah.
As far as what goes on. I mean, I just don't get it.
I'm just trying to keep everybody as informed as I can. Yeah. I think it's
Are
a
you
good
on
plan.
the corner here?
Yeah, I'm right at the corner of Palm and right across from the practice putting green. Yeah.
So I'm up on Fort, the blue house.
Oh, okay, cool.
Where the candy canes are.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, good
All
to
right,
have
so I
you
just
in.
wanted
You said your
to-
name was Jesse.
Jesse, yeah, Jesse.
Okay, Jesse.
So I was agent with the FBI, so I just, that's kind of pilot crime was my thing.
Stop by and have a beer with me sometime on the back patio.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Nice
Okay,
to
good to
meet
meet you.
you.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
Yeah.
Hello, Kevin. Mike Lehigh. I've tried to be here many years. I love everything about it. With the presentation, with the numbers may work, but the members' fees is too high.
I think they are too.
And I think most members, and I think sometimes it's too many members. You have to be realistic with it. If you don't have members in there, and I agree with you, it's going to be a waiting list for people to get in there. Because the lucky ones that get grandfathered in. I think we need to go for a higher figure. And I think, you know what, Ben, it's making no, it's something, no, I understand it. It's one of those things where everything stacks nicely. Get the insect.
It's all your charge?
It looks too good to be true, you know. If it looks too good to be true,
Well-
it probably isn't. I'm saying it sort of, everything flows perfectly.
Correct. I was just telling folks from the city how much that's impacted.
Well, the one thing I forgot to mention.
I mean, you've done it, so much, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Some of us played up north and everything else.
Yeah. But you can't join a club for less than 500 around here. It's private. But the thing is, we're not private. We're 70-something.
And of course, it all does come back to us. You need to be a member. Being a member is a gift, you know, in terms of.
And one of the things I do have built in there is instead of hitting people all at once with a big jump in membership dues after restoration, we would bump it up like maybe $10 a year. We kind of gradually move people up. Yeah.
So you don't need to fix it right.
Well, that's the problem. We don't have a lot of other amenities.
No, that's if you answer. I mean, well, it's just changing the, you know, upgrade, change rooms and everything else. There's all those points.
I don't know what Doug's plan is. He's put about $2 million into it so far.
They'll be beating the door down.
Maybe more
Probably
now.
The only thing we have to consider.
Yeah.
That's, I wish we could get the members to say, the board to go and say, let's take the members and we want to do it.
Yeah.
Because most people want to do it. Why would they not?
That's why I'm trying to get people to tell me.
I think those people have to figure out. I took the email down there. I can just talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah, if I can, it's pretty big, so I might have to put it in a Dropbox or something. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. So I would like to start it off with any questions, but I want to start off with the people that have reservations or concerns, and not to pick on Tracy, but I know Tracy. So, Tracy, tell us what your concern or reservation is that maybe we can address. Yep. Yeah, come on up here.
So Kevin does know me, and thank you very much for your presentation. Very good, appreciate it, very thorough, and an exciting project. I'm very detailed, and I have a lot of considerations. These are not criticisms, these are not guesses, these are just considerations that we all need to think about as we go forward down this path. An issue about we're adding in more bunkers, and that shouldn't make it more difficult for the golfers on this course. Does that add to maintenance costs? Does it do anything to affect speed of play for the average golfer? And this is going to be a municipal course, so we're not talking just about low handicap players. We're talking about the average golfer, the average resident, citizen, tourist that comes in to the city. Is there an added maintenance cost because we're increasing the size of the bunkers? Perhaps, but perhaps not. I'm not sure about that. Do adding more bunkers mean more finesse in terms of a grounds crew maintaining those bunkers? Our grounds crews today are from the local region. Is there, we talk about Sarah Bay, we talk about some of these really great private golf courses that have been restored, but where are they drawing their talent pool from? And are they better trained, highly trained? Are they paid more than a municipal course or city course can afford? The estimate for the restoration, did that include upgrading the maintenance buildings, the restrooms on the course, the clubhouse, all the other facilities? So people who are coming here from around the country, perhaps from around the world, playing this great restored golf course, do they have a level of expectation of what the rest of the facility should look like? And most of you who know me, my mantra is it's about the golf course. If you don't have a really great golf course here, doesn't really, you don't need a restaurant because nobody's going to be coming here to play golf. So we need a great golf course, but we attract those people, and now we need to have some upgraded facilities. And so I think we need to consider the extra cost of all of the outbuildings and the extra facilities. We talk about, you have referenced Sarah Bay, you've talked about Charleston, the renovated course in Charleston, South Carolina. And Charleston is, a city of about 150,000 population, just general population, not including the swell that comes in as tourists. We're a city of 36,000 people. So I'm a little bit concerned about comparing a golf course in Charleston to a golf course in Dunedin, which is like my favorite city and a fabulous place to be. But do we have the infrastructure here to handle an influx of tourists, Donald Ross Society, people who want to come in and play this course? Do we have the hotel rooms? Do we have the rentals, the VRBOs, et cetera, the restaurant, et cetera, to manage that? And maybe we do, and maybe over time we would. Just another consideration. People want to come here and play. They also want to be able to stay here and enjoy the area. Additional grounds maintenance, additional support, additional rangers, pro shop, et cetera. It's just additional staffing that I think we all need to consider. talked about marketing costs, and you're right. A course of this grade would need some terrific marketing. Today, our marketing is negligible, and the city marketing for the golf course, we really ride on the coattails of what's going on with Clearwater and St. Pete. So it would be an increase in marketing budget for us, for the course, and or for the city. So just another consideration. Probably lastly, in terms of closing down the course, 5 months, 6 months, 8 months, whatever that might be, and how would we account for current members of the golf course in terms of locating them at other golf courses to play for that off season. So, I don't know whose responsibility where that responsibility lies with our pro shop, with the city, whatever. But you've got 260 members of this golf course that for 8 months are going to be without a place to play, and so we need to think about them, and how are we going to accommodate them and find another course for them to play for. Yeah, and the lost opportunity costs of us being closed and staff not being employed, and et cetera, et cetera. So thanks for that opportunity.
Those are very good questions. I can answer a few. I'm going to defer to Kris on some of them. We actually have our new greenskeeper here tonight, so I have him address some of those maintenance things. Welcome. I'm sorry, what was your name again? Chris Ansley's here. Okay. So to answer the questions that I can answer, in both the NGF plan and in the plan that I presented to you on the restoration, we have increased golf course maintenance from $750,000 a year to $1 million. And then every year after the restoration, that budget goes up another $50,000. So we have accounted for that. So that's one thing. In terms of the reciprocals and the course being closed down, either way, the course is going to be closed down. Might be closed down an extra month or two with a full restoration versus doing what the NGF recommends. I've actually talked to John Falcone. John would be the point person on that, Tracy. Fortunately for us, being down here in Florida, most of the time that the golf course would be closed down would be in the summertime. And getting reciprocals, according to John Falcone, won't be very difficult. Now, if we were trying to get reciprocals during the peak season, that would be much more of a challenge. And he might even surprise us and get us on some really, really nice courses. But either way, yeah, that's a pain point. I get that. That is something. In terms of the additional traffic, you're really, in both of these, we're looking at 50 to 55,000 rounds. So we're really not talking about that many more rounds than what we're doing today. We're just going to get a lot more money for every round that's played. Right now, if you take the total dollars and divide it by the total rounds, which is a little distorted because you've got 9 whole rounds, it averages about $29 a round. And again, you need to tease out the data and just look at what the public is paying and divide by the number of public rounds. So those. I'm sorry, Corley, you have a question? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my understanding, and I'm not an expert in this by any stretch of the imagination, but before the PGA would even award that, they would come and ask that same question and examine the resources here in Dunedin. What are you willing to do, and and so forth. And I don't think it's not going to be like some of the bigger LPGA or PGA events in terms of attendance. But yeah, that's a question that needs to be. But it's aspirational, right? We had it here before. We got some history there. Heck, it'd be really nice to get it back here. So, in terms of the playability, maintenance stuff, Kris, you talk about the bunkers and slowing down play.
Hey, Kev, to that point also,
Well, as far, I mean, I think those were all great observations, and my experience has been that, yes, you know, adding the bunkers, adding more edge, you know, it is going to be a little more cost to maintain. Whether you do a project or not, you need to spend more money on this golf course. It shows the lack of budgeting on the golf course today, and that's really what's, you know, that's part of what's holding this golf course back from a successful path. You know, there's some trade-offs that happen when we, you know, we put a bunker in, we fold it over, and there's some things that, well, and I don't even know if I mentioned it or not, but, you know, putting like a capillary concrete bunker liner in the bunker so we're not, you know, pushing sand back up after heavy rains. You know, we double and triple the life of the bunker with those kind of systems in here. But we have tools. My clients have not really experienced a lot of direct budgetary impact from a restoration like this. You know, the greens are larger, but it's not that much more expensive. You know, for another 25 or 30,000 square foot of greens, we're only going up 7,000 square feet of sand. You know, across the whole property. There's more bunkers, a little more fly mowing and things like that, using some of the growth regulators. You know, keep that under control. The superintendents today have some tools at their disposal that help manage those additional costs. As far as labor goes, right now I don't think it makes any difference between a municipality and a private club as far as what they're having to pay for hourly rates. Across the board, every client I have is struggling to, you know, maintain a labor force. I mean, it's inherent. We are as a company ourselves, but you know, this plan, you know, you build it. This golf course gives you the potential to really build a strong reputation. You know, that people want to be a part of, and want to, you know. So I think, you know, it helps you, you know, bring employees in when people are talking about it. Your marketing, this golf course, you do need marketing, but when people walk off a golf course like this and say, I played this great authentic Donald Ross golf course down in Dunedin. I mean, they haven't touched this thing since it was built. It is cool. It's an old school classic, and it's got all the nuances. That sells, that travels. People hear them say that, they look it up, they want to come. That's what we've experienced. So
I belong to a course up in PA, a private course. It wasn't a municipal course. And it was a links course, had a lot of long drives, a lot of fairway bunkers, a lot of bunkers around. And they literally had a fairly large crew. That's all they did was bunkers. So bunkers are great. They do slow down play. You're not worried about making it harder. But again, you got to remember, this is a municipal course. You know, this is paid by taxpayer dollars. And so hopefully we get the dollars that we're looking to get in terms of increased cost of dues and memberships. But I'm not saying don't put in more bunkers, but you've got to kind of a little bit of a trade-off how much cost you have for maintenance. Because, you know, when you say you add a whole bunch of new bunkers, but there's really not a lot more cost, there's a lot more cost in terms of daily maintenance, seasonal edging, adding sand. If you're doing the concrete underlayment, that's 3 times more per bunker. I mean, it's a great way because you only do it once. But there's a lot of cost in that. So, you know, it's a Donald Ross course that you need a lot of bunkers, but there's a lot of costs that are associated with it.
Wouldn't the way the bunkers are shaped up be
yeah,
more
well,
expensive today than they
the flashier and the bigger and the higher the sand faces, that's where the cost goes way up. Now this style of bunker is, with them being fairly small and their grass rolling down, the sand being fairly flat, it's going to remain stable, not move around. So they're less costly to maintain, but yes, it's going to cost a little more. And you know, a lot of this bunkering is the type that, you know, the guy that's changing cups can come by and just take a leaf rake and, you know, pop the sand. They're not as exposed to the elements and the wind and things like that and the rain. So there's a little bit of trade-off in some of that. But
Probably won't be as much mechanical raking going on. There'll be more hand raking with the smaller bunkers.
There's more labor.
A little bit.
And we've, like I said, we've increased the budget by 250,000 in the financial projections. Both plans did. Yes.
Kris, what was the square footage on the bunkers now? 7,000.
The total square footage of the bunker is about 70,
And we're going up to 8,500.
like 80,000. It's like 7,000 added sand.
Yeah, that's not a confusing.
So.
I also moved here for this golf course, and I love Dunedin as well. I played a course in Michigan called American Dunes, which was redone by Jack Nicklaus's company, and a portion of your green skis goes to support kids whose parents died as veterans. But the main thing that people keep talking about is we need more revenue for this, for that, which I understand. Where I spent a lot of my money at American Dunes was in this place called the Squadron Bar, so well, I can just like float it, but I'm saying if we made the clubhouse here somewhere people wanted to hang out, like say like in like so football on Sunday we watch football, that type of thing. Now it's just kind of like a restaurant, it feels like a retirement home maybe. Whereas if it was more kind of like I don't know, like a destination where people want to come and stay and spend money besides golfing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think that's a great point, and the point that was made about, you know, if you don't have a golf course, you don't have anything else. It all starts out there, and then the revenue increases in it, and it, you know, maybe it can happen all at once, but it's going to build momentum over time and generate revenue to do some of these other things. That's the goal, is to create a golf course, a destination type golf course that increases revenue, that frees up some revenue to do other things around the facility. So as you do the restrooms and things, it's a great point, they need to be addressed. I mean, everything needs to, you know, come up with the golf course.
Can you give me 3 examples of municipal courses? Courses self-sustaining, no pool, no clubhouse, just course that you've redesigned. I'd like to take a look at them online.
Mooresville Golf Club,
Mooresville?
Mooresville, North Carolina.
New Jersey?
No, North Carolina.
Okay.
It's about 25 miles north of Charlotte.
Okay.
It was had 9 holes at Donald Ross, and it added 9 holes.
Okay.
And we did about a $4.6 million project there. And as Kevin mentioned, they were doing about 800,000 in total revenue before the project. They're over 2 million now.
Okay.
And that's all public.
And the reason they're only at 2 million is they don't charge enough for their golf course. They're going to play 63,000 rounds on that golf course. They used to be lucky to get 20,000 rounds. I mean, it's the most popular golf course in the Charlotte metro area. It's just
Charlotte's a big area. How about 2 other examples for me?
2 other. I haven't done that many municipal golf courses. I've done some.
Well, Mill Creek in Ohio, Boardman, Ohio, that Brad talked about, that's municipal, 36 holes.
Well, I'm trying to think. I'm doing.
There's another municipal course in North Carolina called Wilmington.
Delaware.
Wilmington, North Carolina. Yeah, I didn't do it, but
Yeah, it was done.
it's a great example of a Ross
They restored
restoration.
it and it's slammed.
Okay, I'll take a look at those
yeah.
3. Thanks. I want to see what the populations are around them, what the tax base is. We have a lot of taxes going out in this city right now, with our new city hall, and a lot of other improvements that we've already gone on. And so looking at it from a fiscal responsibility and really realistically what our return is on our investment in citizens. So really, again, when I take a look at the golf course, I live here in Fairway Estates. The number of people who come in from town is very limited. I see the same guys pretty much playing all the time, so you're 33% of the rounds. So I want to make sure that the city, our citizens, are coming up with this money, that the city is going to be able to pay off the bond, and that the citizens will benefit from the project. So I do have concerns about self-sustaining golf.
I would like to ask, are you a golfer?
Yes, I am, as a matter of fact.
It doesn't.
But that doesn't matter.
Why does that matter?
I'm retired.
I'm just asking if you're a golfer.
It doesn't
No,
matter.
I'm not a golfer.
I'm a
I
golfer.
am and I'm not.
I'm a golfer. I was a member here and I stopped because the course just wasn't. I thought worth
I'm
it.
just asking if you were
All
a
right.
golfer.
What does it
But
matter?
it doesn't matter. The taxpayer.
All right.
Pay taxes though.
come on, guys, let's just drop that now. They made some good points, you know, and then that's why I shared with you some of the financial projections. My understanding, I could be wrong, I've got Jennifer and Mofrini back there, but this is money that came from the American Rescue Plan Act, right? This is $18 million that the bulk of that's going to be paid to invest in the golf course?
The city commission has not considered exactly
where the source of the funding is? Okay. Okay, I stand corrected on that. Gary, you had a question?
Yeah, but I just had a question about your NGF versus
right.
loss restoration slide.
Yep.
If you go into the NGF study, there's about $1 million for clubhouse enhancement,
right.
bridge resurfacing, new maintenance building, patio expansion,
yep.
and something called theme enhancement, which is like signage and wall washers
right.
and logos and probably a little advertising in there.
And that is in, you can see I got the yes, that's right here, this infrastructure, all the things you mentioned, yes, no for us. So yeah, that is the biggest difference in the two plans.
So there's about $1
$1 million,
million.
yep, you're correct.
And Kris doesn't do stuff like
yeah.
that anyway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not your job.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't do. I think a lot of that stuff should be done. I think the important point is you're going to have a great golf course that's going to throw off a lot of revenue. It's going to allow you to do that. Plus, as you mentioned last night, we got $500,000 in savings right now that could pay for a lot of that infrastructure over and beyond this plan. So.
Okay, so here's my question for Kris. Because this is going to be a municipal golf course, you did the municipal course at Mooresville, right? Was that a competitive bid process where there was a spec and you bid against other competitors, or was that a sole source?
They, well, it went in 2 phases. So there was architect selection. So I was selected, and then because of the nature of the Donald Ross, they asked me, you know, how I would approach it. So there's something very unique about a restoration like this. So the artistic, the shaping part, they broke out. So my firm managed the project, did all the shaping, and then they bid out all the construction. It was about a $4 million, you know, bid. Now I also recommended the list of bidders to them, and they did take the lowest bid. But my recommendations don't necessarily consider the low bid if they don't have the qualifications to do the work. So we helped evaluate and look at the track record of the contractor. And we brought it in on budget, and
right. So some of that was competitive biddable, and some of it was very specific to a very narrow band of expertise.
Yeah, it was about 4.6 million total. 4 million was competitive bid. Now there was competitive bid on my selection, but my piece of it, the management, all the shaping, and that was about a little over 600,000 total.
Okay, good.
So that was not rebid at construction, just the construction part.
Good, thank you.
But how successful have you been staying within your estimate when a project was complete? We're asking for $3.8 million. I know construction, it's always been a big deal, and almost a guarantee. In previous projects, have you been able to stick and hold on to your estimate?
If you call any of my clients, they'll answer that for you. And we pride ourselves on being able to stay within budget. And there's at times where we have to value engineer. You get out here and start scratching around on the ground on an old piece of property like this, you're going to run into some things and you have to redirect. But my agronomic background allows me, and we have a construction firm. So we know what it takes. We're not missing anything when we're trying to bid one of these. Right now is the most difficult time I've ever experienced. You know, materials costs have just gone through the roof. I mean, we're experiencing 150, 200% inflation on things like drainage pipe. Irrigation pipe is double if you can get it. So there's some things, and I always build in a little bit of contingency, and then, you know, I don't want to cut it too close. So sprinkler heads, things like that. You know, I reach out when I do an estimate. I reach out to the material suppliers and see what it's going to cost. We actually go through that process. How much is greensmith, bunker sand, gravel, sod going to be to this destination? And we can't control diesel costs, and, things like the drainage pipe. But if we get in a situation where we've got to reevaluate something, we just go back to it and start to value engineer it and make sure we don't harm the quality of it. But that's just inherent with the industry, especially right now. It's tough out there. But I've got, I'm very proud of my track record of bringing projects in online, especially on time. And that's money. That's big money. If this golf course stays closed two months extra. So when you're sequencing a project along, the most important thing you do is you make sure you get that grass in the ground with sufficient time for it to fully establish and allow you to play golf. And that's very often overlooked, with a lot of architectural firms, because they don't understand agronomy. They're just throwing in Kris's lap. You deal with, throw some extra fertilizer on it, a little more water. And if the weather's not there, if you miss that growing window, then you can't grow grass. No amount of fertilizer, water, grow grass unless it's at the right time of the year. So we have down here we have the rainy season. Get your grass planted before the rainy season starts. So all of our schedules are built with that mindset.
I have a question. I'm Parks and Recreation Director in the city of Dunedin. I've looked at Tree City USA for the past 30 years. And my question is, I heard you talking about some significant trees that might have to be trimmed or pruned. But I guess the question is, how many actually have to be removed? And what is your budget money for trees?
There's probably 200 trees identified. Now, a lot of those, the majority of those are the little smaller trees. A lot of the little palms, there's some shrubbery out there, but some of the things we want, the little pines, little scruffy pines, but you've got some beautiful oak trees that are so cluttered up and being impacted by, some of these smaller trees. You're going to make that tree healthier. Then you've got some large. And if we go out to 9 green, we've got 2 large live oaks growing in the side of the field pad of the green. We can't invest enough money in that green to be successful with those 2 trees sitting there. So those trees are going to have to come down. But those are the last trees that we want to take out. Left of 3 green, there's a couple of trees inside the cart path, but there's plenty of trees on the other side of the path. But the tree roots from those trees that are under the greens, there's some safety hazards out there with the root systems in the roughs. Where the turf is thinned out, there's not enough sun, the topsoil washes away and the roots are exposed and players are impacting them with their clubs.
So overall 200?
We're, around that.
And what's your budget for tree removal?
The way we had approached it, I think we were in the 75,000 range. Because those little small trees we felt like could be done in-house with some, just get a chipper out here. A lot of these trees are small enough, you just cut them and throw them through a chipper. Then you're gonna, take them to, build up some mulch and maybe repurpose the mulch, in the community or whatever around some of the other projects that the city may have going on.
Yeah, my name is Richard Burnell. I live out of Dennisburg. Condo out there, and the difference between this course and Copperhead is, number one, I paid the survey. I'm a volunteer out there for the Groundsman. He introduced me to me, so we get discounted golf occasionally on Copperhead. And I always ask people who are playing Copperhead, why are you playing this at $400 a round? Because that's what they charge. And the reason they're playing out there for $400 is because the pros. They're willing to pay $400 just because the pros play there. That's the secret. Now, I, like you, Kevin, was a businessman. I sold my business. But before I sold my business, I invested heavily in infrastructure. Okay? Made my business grow. It's huge. They have 107 employees. And that was just in 20 years. 0 to 20 years. that front gate at Innisbrook every day, and all I see is this field of green. The most beautiful place in the world. You look at Copperhead, and there's nothing but the most beautiful grass you ever saw in the world. The only difference between this course and Heckler's is my from the league. Now, why don't I be a member out there? Because it costs $25,000. So I volunteer for the tournament, and I get discounted golf occasionally. Not the golf, I play the North Course, the South Course, Island, or Copperhead, whichever ones we want. Discounted. I play Copperhead. We paid $55 last year.
Is there a question?
Why don't you concentrate on the main infrastructure that you guys don't have is your water system? Where do you get your water from?
Reclaim.
So you can have as much as you want?
I don't know about that anymore.
I know,
That's a Vince question.
There are many nights that I cannot go in from the front gate to my apartment without turning the hose away. They are watering every single night. I don't know where they get the water. I know that's all recycled, but they put so much water.
Okay, can we, I don't mean to cut you short though, can we move on to another? Bernie, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to get back to the tree issue there. Kris, are you going to take suggestions on which tree to cut down?
We have a tree called the Bernie tree out there.
There's a tree on 12, just on the left across the creek, and if that doesn't come down, I'm taking it down.
The one with all the dimples in the side of it. I get you.
Sure.
So my side, I'm a resident here right up the street, and I do play golf. Not my handicap isn't that great now, but I was down to a 4 when I was 2 or 3 years ago. So it's all about time. My question is regarding your proposed green fees.
Yeah.
So we've been down here for 3 years. I was a member here for the first year, then had to stop for work reasons and other reasons. I don't know how fair it is in terms of having a full and a founding member. I know some of the people in here are founding members. $30 isn't a big difference per month, but it adds up if it's lifetime.
Yeah.
I moved here 3 years ago, so I missed it by 2 years. Is it fair that if I join again, I got to pay $360 more per year just because I moved here 2 years later? It'd be different if you had a bond, buy it, but there's no bond here.
Right.
So one time, I know what it was, $2 grand,
Right.
whatever. It's a phenomenal. So I think in fairness, if you want to play golf, you should be able to afford to play golf. I think it's great to have a junior amount for young players to get in. But after that, you have a member rate. There's no senior rates. It's just, everybody plays golf. A human being on a course is a human being on a course.
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges when you're doing financial assumptions. You go out and talk to other golf courses similar to what you're doing, try to find out what's happened, what are they doing. So that's just one scenario. Certainly, I've actually had a number of people come up to me, Kevin said, I love your presentation, everything's good, but those member rates are ridiculously low.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
They're crazy.
and that's probably true. So now you instead of getting 1.1 million extra a year, that number goes up. And a lot of courses on their 3-tier system, I call it the 1, 2, and 3X. So if your baseline is $40 for your residents, then it's $80 for the people in state, and it's $120 for the people out of state. So there's a lot of different permutations. A couple of us that have finance backgrounds have kind of done different scenarios, but this is one that we felt was very conservative, is very doable, and it's certainly open for discussion, and it's not set in stone by any stretch of the imagination.
Kevin, I had a question.
Yeah, Nick.
So Tracy brought up a good point earlier that adding more bunkers would make a greater cost. Considering that we haven't upkept the bunkers at all, is it more or is it the same?
Well, Kris can speak to that because the bunkers that you have today haven't been kept up, and they're very high maintenance because they've been elevated. So,
because there's been no maintenance.
Yeah.
So like in a rain event, our bunkers fall in, the faces
Right.
fall in.
Yeah.
But with the bunkers you're proposing, we're not going to have to reconstruct the bunkers after every rain event.
No.
They're a lot less maintenance intensive.
Well, you know, it's like, I have clients where when we're finished with the bunkers, where they used to go out with 5, 6 guys for 3 to 5 days and push them back up, and then they have to go back and try to recompact the sand, and now say, you know, and 3 guys for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and they're put back together. So instead of, you know, focusing on washed out bunkers, you know, they're off doing other things. So you know, but at the same time, there's a little bit of fly mowing. You know, looking at these bunkers, the way they ramp up, I mean, there's a lot of hand labor that has, you know, take place. That's going away. You're going to run the mower right around the lower side of the bunker. So, you know, whereas today, you're going in the bunker, it goes up, you're going to go right off the fairway and just drop right onto the sand flat. And it's important going forward that we keep the sand in the bunkers. Because what's been happening here is they're, you know, they're just raking it out for years. They rake it out, the grass grows through it, and it goes, you know, just works its way up. You look at the front of 8 Green, when you know, that's a bunker that I say, you know, sees a lot of action. I mean, everybody in here's been in that bunker because that thing's 4 feet above the green. So, you know, that's a situation where there's just a lot of golf balls going in there, a lot of blasting of sand, you know, up on the face. Then you come back every so often, you carve it back off. But here, I think the maintenance has just been deferred forever and ever.
Well, I think something we lose touch with is we're doing so many repair projects with irrigation and
Band-Aids.
it's sodding this, that. Once the course is restored, it's going to be new essentially, and it's going to be more of maintenance as opposed to repair.
Well, and the other thing about the bunkers, and I hear you loud and clear, but you got to remember the fairways now are 25, 30 yards wide in some areas. You know, these fairways are going to be widened out to what, 40, 50? And
Well,
so the bunkers are going to be where the rough is right now in some cases, right?
Yeah, we're not going back to the old original. We can't go back to the original Donald Ross width because you've got trees. And you know, a pure restoration in its purest sense. Well, we'd cut down all the trees and reestablish all these big, huge, wide fairways. But with the kind of play that you have, there, you know, from a safety standpoint, you can't do that. So we're gonna peel some of the inside trees off, but we're gonna leave enough trees to keep, you know, the whole separation. So we'll have fairways that are 100 to 110, 115 feet wide versus 75 and 80. That slows down play. So that aspect, even though we're putting more bunkers, that might slow down play a little bit. We're widening fairways that will help speed it up.
And the other
Bigger
thing,
greens, you know, things like
another
that.
thing, you know, we haven't really talked about, but when Kris comes in and if we do this project, retills that soil, gets that sugar sand up on top, your fairways are going to percolate a lot better. You're going to get a lot better drainage. Then with this tough grass, you're going to start getting some roll out here, gang. I mean, it's not going to be hit and plug and go 2 feet. It's going to be hit and run 30 or 40 yards, which that's going to help the higher handicapper and the shorter hitter because they're going to get a lot more run, you know.
No more mud.
Yeah. I promise. I've been to these restored courses. It's fun. Makes you feel like you're hitting it long again. Yeah, Rick?
Yeah, I have a question that either Brad or Kris or both could answer. Are you familiar with any restoration projects that have gone less well than expected? And what are the factors that led to it not succeeding?
I mean, I have to be careful because I make it a practice not to badmouth the competition, but there are some misinterpretations of what a raw screen should be like, and they've gotten, you know, wildly overly contoured. I saw one at San Jose in Jacksonville. You know, anytime I'm traveling around, I want to go see a Donald Ross golf course, and some guy had restored it, and I walked 2 holes and turned around and, you know, walked back to the clubhouse, but it was so wildly done, and just, you know, their interpretation of the rolls and the spines and things, and it was unrealistic from a green speed. You know, even though he may have built a green like that in 1926, we can't build that green fully to that extent because we're going to run the greens at 10.5. We generally design the greens to roll at 10.5, you know, as a maximum speed, but when you want to have a big event and they want them at 12 and a half, you know, you're going to reduce your pin placement, available pin placement a little bit, but you can do that for little short durations. And everybody wants to be Augusta speed, but it's unrealistic. It's just not possible.
Yeah, I had a comment and a question. I mean, I think there's been a lot of great points brought up tonight, but I mean, I just want to say that I think a lot of the points I've heard brought up were there's not really any difference between the NGF plan and this plan. Like, there's going to be issues. The course is going to be closed down. There's going to be pain points. I just believe that, you know, if we are going to redo the course, I think we should redo it in a way that's going to create a foundation for us to grow going forward and create a marketable property to where we can be successful. Whereas I'm nervous that if we go with the lowest bidder and how we do things, that all we're going to get is 10% better than what we have today, and where are we going to be in 3 years? Whereas this is a plan where actually we can become a destination revenue and we can bring people in. Clearwater Beach is the #1 beach in the country. People want to play golf here. There's not many places to play golf publicly in Pinellas County. I mean, why do y'all play here? Is it because the course is great? I doubt it. The course is trash. And we still play here. Why is that? It's because you don't have better options. And there is a ton of people that come down there and we create a marketable property that we can make money off of. This clubhouse, that's going to have to come later. This is city's property. Why are we worried about this? This is the city's. I mean, they need to take care of their property. I'm not trying to be rude, but they are the leaser. This is their property at this point. They've already agreed that we're out, they're in. If we create revenue over time, we can take care of that, but just redoing it with somebody out of nowhere that doesn't know what they're doing is not necessarily going to create more revenue. I mean, you're at least creating a marketable product that you can advertise and creates a buzz, and we can bring people in. And whether or not we have to do as many bunkers or not, and that leads to my question, is Kris, how flexible are you about being flexible to what we do with the restoration? If there's apprehension to bunkers or tearing down trees, how flexible you are to your design concepts?
Well, there's limits to everything. I mean, we always have to make concessions. There's not a project we ever do that there isn't some, you know, trade-offs that come into play. But we've made some of those. I mean, there are architects that they say, you know, you need to put back every single bunker that was on that original plan. We want to build this thing, you know, with this museum piece. We want all 114 bunkers, and that's the only thing you should ever consider. And I'm not one of those architects. And I think, you know, the give and take on the property, I'd love to put them all back. I don't think it's practical. So we've tried to, you know, taper it back a little bit. So we're at 87. So that's 27 bunkers. I think that's right. Yeah. 27 bunkers that we're not recommending to put back. But we're doing a little bit of a softer version so we can get the benefit, get the disruption to the ground out there. That's really important. It was very important to Donald Ross that the flatness and the ground, these bunkers, they contrast with it. So when you look across the property, you see these bunkers and these little forms step up, and then the flatter ground's working all through it. So it's an avenue, and it's those edges are defined. So you know when you're on hole number 1, instead of just the tree lines being the edge, now you have a secondary edge on the inside of those features. You can still hit it out in the trees, and you can still go beyond them, but it just adds a very unique element. But Donald Ross is the most recognizable classic architect by 20-fold. If I ask you to start naming the classic architects of that era, you know, not many people ever get past Donald Ross. It's the most marketable architectural pedigree there is. And you know, they're not making any more Donald Ross golf courses, so, and you just happen to be in possession of one of his best work. And when you read some of the statements from the Gene Saracens of the world that played here, and the Walter Hagens, and what they said about this golf course, now pretty discerning eyes. This was one of the best golf courses they saw. So, you know, Florida's got Seminole. That's the kingpin. That's Donald Ross. You know, where's the next great example? You know, Ron Whitten came down and walked Sarah Bay with me. He said, this may be the most authentic Donald Ross in the state of Florida after what we did. Well, I guarantee you we can create the same type of product here. And that's not a big budget club. It's $1 million budget, golf course maintenance budget.
Hey guys, we're starting to butt up about 8:30, so I'll take one more question, front row here.
Probably more of a statement. The gentleman back there asked about, cutting costs and so forth, what it may mean. Most of you, I suspect, have read an article not more than 2 or 3 months ago in one of the golf magazines, and it was on municipalities and golf courses. And the point they made was the fact that those that did not do well tried to do it cheap. And those that have done it well have done a really good job. Now, the second point I would make would be Pinellas Trail. When we first talked about Pinellas Trail and being a past president of Pinellas Trails, I can tell you we had a lot of opposition. Look what the trail is today. Look what it has done to the knee. And I will tell you right now, this course, if it's renovated the way it should be, will add more to this area.
Thank you. I couldn't end the meeting any better than that. So thank you very much for coming out tonight, and we appreciate all your participation. And if you like what you see, contact your city commissioners, the mayor, send them emails, and let them know what you think. So thank you.